Hello, welcome to the Creaky Coolers on a Monk, and today, yes, we are doing a video within Crusader Kings 3. Today's video, we are talking about tours and tournaments. Now, I'm a little bit late, obviously, bringing this video out, but I know that many people do turn to my channel for CK3, so I figured I would cover it. Now, obviously, the console version of CK3 has been handed over to new developers. That means we are getting content thick and fast. That means more content should be coming out this year. And as someone trying to get into the game this year, Tours and Tournaments is a DLC that you should be looking at. But it is considerably expensive. It's probably the most expensive DLC you can actually buy for Crusader Kings 3. So what do you get for your money, and is it worth your time? That's what we're going to be talking about. So we're going to be going over the three major things that we can do within this DLC. And I'm going to be showing you them step by step. So we're going to be doing a grand tournament, a grand tour, and of course, a grand wedding. Now, right now, we are trying to do a grand tournament. Now, we are at the beginning of our game, really. Yes, I do have an emperor, but we are kind of like, in the first life, so we're quite early on in the game. Therefore, we don't have as many things available to us as we would if we were quite late into our game. You do need to unlock certain things in order to do multiple events, right? But at the moment, I'm able to pick an event. We've gone for a melee event, which I think is kind of cool. We can choose to spectate that melee event, or of course participate in the melee event. So we're going to go for participate. Now we have got this rather interesting thing now where we get to have a caravan master, and we get to put a few extra little things in just to kind of make sure that these events go well. We've got hired mercenaries and we've got someone of culture, so we can really try and make sure that this tournament goes well. Now, we can also change what we actually intend to do. What is the purpose of this event? As you see, we actually get quite a lot of agency over what it is we want to essentially get out of this tournament. This is something that you can really use well to kind of enrich your kingdom. If you're able to set one of these up and afford them, 9 times out of 10 is absolutely worthwhile. I would say that just how well you succeed at these things really does come down to your player, your stats, and of course RNG. CK3 is a massively RNG game in which you need a little bit of luck on your side as well. But as you can see, as we continue setting up this tournament, we really do have access to a lot. Some things we've got enough gold, we can kind of afford the the most expensive of every single option. We can pick a champion and make sure we're really putting a lot of money into this, and essentially to try and get the the most back. However, if you are on a budget, it does work too. So keep that in mind. You don't have to, be put in the most expensive food, the most expensive accommodation. You do have a little bit of choice here, which is again quite nice. Now, another thing I think is important to notice that you can just be in this tournament in that screen the entire time. This is the screen we're talking about, but you can also just back up and actually handle your business as well. Sometimes it can take quite a long time for you to actually get these things up and running, so you don't feel like you're kind of trapped away from your kingdom just because you're running one of these events. Alternatively, if war does pop up while you're holding one of these events, you do get an option to stay at the event, or of course, to essentially abandon it and go off to war. What I quite like though is to see that I'm actually able to kind of, look around this area and interact with different aspects. I think that's kind of cool. I think that being able to visit the village or visit the tavern, visit the armory or the tents, every single one of these options has a possibility of popping up different events and different things as well. Also, you're able to kind of, trick your way into getting advantages within the upcoming melee, for instance. Again, all these little things, I think, just add a remarkable amount of story to your game. Remember, this is just one aspect that we're going to be covering today, the tournament side. But I do think the unique stories that you're going to be able to tell because of this is really, really quite good. Instead of just, trying to conquer the world, it can get a little bit stale sometimes. Actually being able to give the person you're playing as his own personal unique story, I think is really, really interesting. I think it adds an awful lot of depth to your playthrough. It means you're not just necessarily going to be just plowing through the years, that you can literally just stop, take a breath, and just appreciate the story that this game has to offer. Yes, it does mean that there's a lot of reading. Yes, it does mean there's a lot of, it's a lot of a slower pace. But sometimes I think this game kind of needs that slower pace, because at the end of the day, you can get lost in just conquering nations and conquering duchies, chasing that next county. And this kind of just adds a completely new look, at this game and feel for the game as well. I think playing this game today and playing this game a year ago or 2 years ago, it's changed so much, and it's really, really pleasing to see. This DLC, Tours and Tournaments, is something that I was meant to pick up, and I believe I did pick it up. I just didn't have the time at the time to actually, sit down and play it. But I was really excited to see, it finally launch on console, and I'm increasingly more excited to see the DLCs that are going to be coming in the future, because this plays really well. I was worried again, extra screens, extra things, it's just going to make this game lag maybe, or be just so overly complicated and clunky. But it works so well. It just sits straight into the game. And once you buy this DLC, kind of hard to play it without it. I think adding in the grand tournaments is so good, because look at all of that stuff that we managed to get out of that. That is a lot of goodies. I mean, the prestige and the stress loss is, enough. But being able to have all of those extra opinions on all of your vassals is really helpful as well. I think one of the things that this helps with the most is actually just keeping your kingdom together. Like, I've got a lot of people now that's got a positive opinion of me because they attended this tournament, which is really, really helpful. And I think in general, I found that it just helps keep your kingdoms together that much longer, because a lot of the time I find that, getting a duchy, getting your kingdom up and running, or even your empire up and running, is easy enough. Keeping it together is the hard bit. Now we're going to look at the Grand Tour, and essentially this is you going around your land. Now, what I like about it the most is that you've got different reasons for doing this. As you can see, I could go around on a taxation tour, trying to get as much money as possible. I could go around on an intimidation tour, trying to build up my dread and make people fear me. But what I want, again, is just to, see my kingdom, introduce myself, because we are now an empire. I think that's kind of cool. Maybe that's a reason to start a tour. But not only that, what you can do is you can visit all of those people that are a little bit, say, don't like you as much. Yeah, they have a low opinion of you. Or maybe it's, it's a poorly controlled area, in which case, you've got peasants looking to revolt. Well, by visiting them on a grand tour and, trying to just be nice, as you see a magistry tour, just trying to introduce yourself and say hi and be one with the people, you're able to get positive opinion with all of the people that you visit. Sometimes even you'll be able to get hooks or money, prestige, all of that jazz. As you can see, when I picked the 3 different people that I wanted to visit, I can visit up to 10. That's important as well. I can visit up to 10 different places. I visited 3 because 10 takes an awfully long time. But when I did choose, who I wanted to visit, I could choose what I wanted to do with each of the people that I wanted to visit. So there really is an awful lot to it. And you really do get some pretty awesome things out of it. As you can see right now, I've encountered someone, they've done something quite bad, but I get to interact with it, leave them there. Maybe I could keep them. If you free them, they kind of join your court. You can meet some really interesting characters that have some pretty decent skills this way, I found as well. So if you have a court that may be a little bit lacking in certain places, maybe you need a decent steward, for instance, or decent spy master, you actually do have a half decent chance of actually finding someone with some pretty decent skills on the way. Now, this is the general screen that you're going to be looking at and interacting with. Things are going to pop up all the time with this journey. And you'll see that you'll have the, we currently have three. We have three people that we will be visiting, and we will be able to see the progress bar kind of fill as we go along our journey. It is kind of long. Be careful with the Grand Tour is all I'm going to say. I found quite often than not, whenever I go on a rather large Grand Tour, that's when war seems to like kicking off. But again, much like with the tournaments, you can choose to continue your tour or go and put your head back into war. Also, don't be afraid. Again, you can completely click off the screen. You don't have to be mirrored on this screen. You can just click off it and just go about your day-to-day business if you want to. But I did find this is a really, really good way to kind of just get those vassals' opinions up of you, maybe getting some decent money out of it, some decent prestige out of it. I really found that, for prestige, it was absolutely brilliant. So if you're low on prestige, doing this is a great way. The tournaments and, of course, the Grand Tour is a great way to get so much prestige. I don't think I've ever had so much prestige in any playthrough, to be honest with you, because I just felt that everything I'd done with these big events just gave so much prestige, which was really helpful because sometimes it can be really difficult. I like to play as a character that's a little bit naughty, therefore I lose levels of prestige quite often, which isn't very helpful. Or of course, I'm using my prestige for other ways. You do spend prestige just like you spend money sometimes, so having an awful lot of it is bloody helpful. Now I've gone ahead and fast forwarded or cut out the rest of that tour because, like I said, it does take a considerable amount of time. But as you can see, these are three people we visited. We gained opinion on all of them. We gained a lot of prestige as well. It was a really good thing that we managed to do for our kingdom. And like I said, you can actually visit 10 different places. So if you have got 10 places you want to visit, you are able to do that. I quite like that you're able to visit essentially your entire kingdom if you're small enough. Now, the last thing we're going to be looking at is a grand wedding. These are pretty decent. Now, obviously, for a grand wedding for yourself, you need not to be married in the first place. You can essentially tick this box, and what that will do is promise a grand wedding. Now, sometimes what that will mean is that you'll get access to better spouses because you're promising something quite, elaborate, and that's quite desirable to the rest of the people within the game. So because of that, you're able to sometimes marry above your station, or at least have access to marriages that perhaps you wouldn't have normally. So I think that's a really, really good thing. Now, again, the grand weddings are really cool. Now, what you do is you promise a grand wedding. So you tick the box, find someone that you want to marry, make the proposal, have that accepted, and then you can essentially go over to the tab and plan your grand wedding. Now, it will only be available if you have already done this. So if you go over to the tab, and you'll be able to make a tour or a tournament. If you haven't promised a grand wedding, that option will be crossed out. Now, you can also do it not only for yourself, but also for someone within your own family. In fact, any marriage that you're able to actually fix, do, orchestrate, tough word, yourself, you're able to turn it into a grand wedding. As you can see, the option is available for us because we have already promised one. Now, they are costly. We should say that. They are very, very costly. But as ever, you do get some pretty decent things out of it. Now, I do think it's a bit of a shame, actually, that the Grand Tour, the tournaments, and the weddings are all so costly. It kind of does mean that you really do need to focus down on that money as quickly as possible, because if you don't have the money, you're not going to be able to do it, and that absolutely sucks. But I did spot these details as well, the gracious host and the magnificent host. If you manage to do something rather good and everyone likes it, you do get an extra little bonus in prestige again, which I thought was quite cool. Another thing that I thought was interesting is how you have access to a bloody wedding if, you have a few things set up for it. So in other words, you're able to kill a rival family or, have some pretty creepy assassinations take place. Obviously, they've taken inspiration, I believe, from Game of Thrones, but I think that's an interesting touch. Now, planning our grand wedding means that we get to choose where to host it, as we just saw. We also have the very familiar screen that we have right now. We have a caravan master. Of course, we've gone for the same options that we did for the others as well. There are a few different things that you can kind of have done, a few different options you're going to have done. As you can see, we are inviting vassals, we're inviting or just choosing who we want to invite, which I think is quite cool, because we can just have it quite a small thing, or you can have just a huge elaborate thing. And we are having a grand wedding, so we're going to go ahead and do all of those expensive options as well. Once again, you don't have to. Make sure you do it to your own budget, but of course, if you do fork out the extra money, you are more likely to have better rewards. Again, something to keep in mind. Now, leading up to this grand wedding, there are going to be a few different things that happen. That are preparations that need to take place. There are a few options that may end up delaying the wedding. Be careful about delaying the wedding if those sort of things do end up happening, because if it doesn't happen within 3 years, that is a broken promise, and you really don't want to go down into that. But I did find that I ended up making some really interesting decisions through the grand wedding. Some of them were actually quite funny. You can get quite bored with the wedding, or you as in your character, depending on the different traits that you have as well. So keeping your character under a certain stress level is quite important as well, because I did find that you were able to pick up a trait which was wedding jitters, which again I thought was quite humorous. Vice versa, you could become a confident groom, which again I think is quite cool, because that kind of just makes things go a little bit smoother. And you also have the option to say I do, which I think is quite interesting when it actually comes down to, exchanging rings and getting married. You do actually have to say I do. There is an option to not do it as well. And of course, that's going to have other interesting outcomes that pop up. Another thing I thought was quite interesting is that after the ceremony, there is kind of, the bedding. And again, there are some really interesting and humorous lines that kind of pop up. Some of them are just, you obviously suddenly find your bride repulsive, and you're like, I cannot bear to lay with you tonight, or, oh, thank God I've had enough drink in order to lay with you. There really are some quite funny different options for getting married. But along the way of the wedding, you'll also be able to get higher opinion with all of those that you have invited. So if they've had a good day, if the wedding's gone smoothly and successful, every single guest member that you have invited is going to get better opinion of you. And of course, that is going to be more helpful for your kingdom as well. I think the biggest outcome for this DLC, it really just enables you to have a smoothly and well-run kingdom, meaning that there are less factions constantly popping up. There are less independent wars, or less, negative things happening within your kingdom, because you're able to keep your kingdom more happier more often if of course you can afford those pennies. Another thing I quite liked is that you're able to give your knights accolades. You're able to give them kind of like rewards for performing well, even if that is, for instance, members of your own family. Just little things like that I think just really help to elevate this game from what it is, or what it was, to what it is today. Is it worth this huge price tag that it has? Maybe not, but it did come out last year now on console, so that means that deals and sales do pop up all the time. If it is on sale, I would highly recommend picking it up. And ultimately, this is a DLC I would recommend getting eventually anyway, because it really does elevate this game to the next level. But there we have it, guys. That is kind of like my review of this DLC. Let me know down in the comments what you think, if you've been playing it, if you've got it, or if you're looking to pick it up. But until next time, I've been a monk, you've been a Crusader, and I'll see you in the next video real soon. Until then, take it easy. And of course, as ever, guys, happy gaming.